today, Josh, we're going to talk about part of the ARPA. Do you remember ARPA?
Yes.
Yeah,
This
we
is
need the.
Are we going to talk about ERC?
We're going to talk about ERC and ARPA.
Yeah.
So we talked earlier, or last week or so, we talked about the Recovery Startup Program, which is part of ARPA, which is the American Recovery Plan Act. I always think Plan and Act is redundant.
Recovery. American Recovery, Remember, we could never get that right.
That's why we came up with ARPA, and then it reminded us of the Aflac duck, and so we're going to get an ARPA aardvark. Does that work?
Yeah.
Do you know what kind of sounds aardvarks make?
No.
Yeah,
Actually,
I have no idea.
This next program, we should have maybe a turtle for it, because that's how long it takes them to process the paperwork.
Well, that's a good point. We're going to get there. So I'm going to use this to introduce ARPA and ERC. ERC. So ARPA is the American Recovery Plan Act, and so this came about over the difficulties of the last couple of years that impacted the world. But this is a U.S. government program.
Stimulus programs, both of them, yeah.
And so the past two administrations have been involved in either creating or shaping this what it is today. And so the Employee Retention Credit, right, the ERC, that's what we're going to talk now. ERC.
We should own ERC, because out of all this time, no one has called it ERC yet. So it should be ERC. It really irks me.
Yeah, ERCL. So, hey, Josh, just give us an overview of Employee Retention Credit.
Basically, it was the government's way of stimulating the economy and awarding people, who retained people through the tumultuous last few years. I'm not saying because in videos these days, they don't like us using the P word or the C word. And by the way, they're not what you think they are.
Not what you're thinking.
Yeah.
YouTube flags those, and we go through all kinds of hoops to get the video back up. So
the C word influenza, or whatever you want to call it, but whatever. The economies, and people's businesses were greatly disrupted. And the government said, look, we need to help these businesses. And you've probably heard of this program by now, Employee Retention Credits, but you may not understand it. And I still run into people that don't understand it. And basically, the government is, you'll hear these in radio ads. They'll say, the governments will pay you up to $7,000 per quarter per employee. And it doesn't make any sense to people. But I wish they would have called it employee tax refund. Is basically for the fact that you employed people, they're giving you a refund. You're actually getting a check from the IRS for funds, and it's true. It could be up to $7,000 per employee per person for all your W-2 employees per quarter.
Hold on, per quarter, yeah.
Yeah, for the first 3 quarters of 2021, but there's also, there's a look back period in the 2020. It doesn't matter if you received a PPP loan or EIDL. They do affect the amount you receive, but they don't affect your qualifications. There are criteria. It could be a 20% reduction in revenue or a severe disruption in your business, and that's why we don't have anything to do with it. That's why experts, you need to contact the experts. Company we were hired to market for, we're early adopters of this program, and they've found over 100 million. I think it's over 120 million now for their clients, and it's because they became experts in this. We have found through the marketing of this, even CPA firms, bookkeepers, payroll companies, were not on the forefront of this, did not understand it, stayed away from it.
Let's take that one step further, Josh. They didn't understand that, they stayed away from it, even because you've been involved in this, from the start. So even after Relentless Accountability, an established accounting firm, that the one you're talking about, that got over $120 million for their clients, even as they spoke with some of these people and they took it to their accountant, how often did you get feedback? I mean, not even feedback, like rejection.
Yeah, the term we heard, which made me laugh, was my trusted advisor said we shouldn't do this. And we're like, you qualify. There's not a gray area here. You had a reduction of, say, your revenues were down, you had losses, you are the perfect, this is what it was designed for. And they were like, oh, well, I was told that, I don't qualify. Well, not by anyone that understood the program. And then when they found out they were wrong and they got their checks, they were obviously very happy. It allowed them to hire more employees and expand their businesses, which is what it was for. It was to stimulate the economy. So I just found it funny how many people were advised not to take it. And when you would ask them why, they would be wrong. They would be completely wrong about the program. And it wasn't until we were really challenged marketing it, because it sounded too good to be true. I mean, I had entrepreneur friends of mine that I'm like, hey, have you looked at this? You guys, your restaurant, you had to close your lobby, you had to close your interior. I know you were hurt. You had to lay off some of your staff. You guys qualify for this. And then when they found out, they were excited. But in the beginning, they were like, oh, our CPA said, no, we don't qualify, because they didn't understand the qualifications for it.
Well, it's not even just they didn't understand the qualifications, right? I just want to take it back. At that point, and my opinion to this point, most or a good chunk still don't even know about it. And then they don't understand it. And then there's this resistance out of kind of out of ignorance, and part of it, the resistance is out of caution. But it's kind of a fight to get there. But it seems like it's that thing where it's like a rising tide raises all ships. So as of more accounting firms are telling their clients about it, now it's become more acceptable, and businesses are like, oh yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah. And also there were two things that were super helpful. Third party, what do they call it? Not third party verification, but like when Forbes magazine interviewed someone at the IRS, and they said, 75% of businesses that qualify for this haven't applied for it. They were like, wait, 75% of businesses? And they were talking about the numbers of businesses that actually do qualify, who just didn't understand the program. And then people were like, oh, wait, I should listen to him again. Then what happened was, as competitors or friends of these business owners who didn't got checks, they went, wait, this is real. But because of how long it took to process some of these in the beginning, one of the reasons the IRS needed to hire employees, I hate to tell you, that's why, because there have been so many, during the pandemic and everything, they're still catching them on backlog of actual returns, so they need to hire. Now they're getting through these quicker. So we are seeing them process faster. But I found it amusing that, you were telling somebody about it for 8 months. They wouldn't believe you. Their neighbor got a check, and then all of a sudden it was like, I need to file that. I'm like, well, you got 8. You're going to be getting it in 8 months now, or 12 months, or whatever.
So I want to hit on 2 points real quick. One, dude, you said the P word.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. It's on tape. I got it.
We're gonna have to edit it.
I'm just gonna edit that out. So do you hear? Or we're gonna replace it with something. The other thing is, I wanted to tell you a story that I think I might have shared with you 3 weeks ago, maybe less. I was biking with a friend who's in the nonprofit industry, and I told him about this, Josh, 12 months ago. And you talked about third-party verification, and he politely blew me off. Now I know this guy well.
Yeah.
Right. But after, as you're saying, after he heard about this person and that person, this organization, that organization, getting it, they went and did it. They're getting almost $800,000 back.
Yeah.
And it was the only reason he did it is because third-party verification. A couple other people, a couple other organizations had, gotten checks, and all of a sudden, oh, maybe this is a real thing. So, Josh, the third-party verification, it's important, right? I'm glad that they got this impactful money. It's a nonprofit, so it goes to help people. That's awesome. But how do we get past that, right? How do we talk to people and get them past the fact that this is a real thing?
It's super difficult because, again, if I said, hey, the government still has free money to give you, it just sounds like a scam. It just sounds, so I totally understand it. And there's even some people that are like, yeah, and that's why there's inflation and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, it's not going to stop your competitor from getting it. So
I'm getting the money. Yeah.
So you might as well do it because you're going to need it, but.
Yeah. So, hey, let's talk about the scam real quick. So that is a real worry. And the program is legit. I mean, it's through the government, but there's some scammy companies out there. And you and I, for the other part of ARPA, we come across that one company on advertising on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah.
Can't even decipher what company it is. It was just, I can't believe it's still up and running. So that stuff does make it legitimately harder for people to accept this, is when there's some nondescript company, you don't know what they do, and they're pushing this thing. So when it comes to scam, this is a real, we'll have a link to the IRS. You go, look at it. But it's a real thing. But make sure you use a reputable company that an accounting firm that focuses on government programs, and that's why you and I are partnered with Relentless Accountability, because this is what they do, and they've been so incredibly successful at it.
Yeah, it's working with them has been like a real pleasure, and seeing all the businesses that it has helped. And just to give you one more, well, I could give you two short stories, but the one, a dear friend of mine.
Right, short story number one.
Dear friend of mine owns several small businesses here in the Valley, and he was rocked. Just most of his business is required on people being inside, and that was not an option. So he was hurt, and I had approached him. He was actually, I approached him in his office, and he just kind of blew me off about it. And then when I learned more about the program, this was early on, I went to go tell him again. And I chased him down literally in a restaurant down the street. He was having dinner with his daughter who was in town. And I said, hey, I need to tell you. And he just was like, what are you? Just stop. What are you telling me? And he literally said to me, hey, we have really fancy accountants. If we would know about this. And I wouldn't take no for an answer. So I ran back over to his office, and I knew his controller was in there. And I went to his controller and I said, would you please look at this? And he goes, look, who are you working with? Because you don't know about this, is what he said. So I gave him the name of the individual, Bart Dunn, and he looked him up. And he goes, oh, this guy's legit. So he called him. $2.1 million later, that's how much they got. $2.1 million for all their businesses. And it allowed them to hire. It allowed them to expand. It allowed them to put on a patio for the next time this happens. It was,
it should allow them to do? It should allow them to fire that trusted advisor.
Yeah.
And that's what we come across, is that these trusted advisors.
They still are. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
I just expect really nice Christmas presents this year. That's all.
Yeah, well, let me know if that happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And then you alluded to story number two.
Yeah, the story number two is actually, and again, this is called, it's kind of like your friend. This is it was a nonprofit. I found out nonprofits qualified. There's several that I'm friends with from my previous life, because I love, thrift stores and I really like the charitable organizations more than, just your standard 503Cs, but the ones that really give back to the community. And there was one here in the Valley, which I will not name. And they were, I went in and said, I need to see, and it's a large organization. I'm like, I want to talk to your CEO. And they're like, why would you? And I've done favors for them, free appraisals and stuff. And they said, okay, well, I got the cell phone and called the CEO, and they were like, yeah, no, we don't. I don't think we qualify for that. We had a really good year. And I'm like, you guys qualify. I know you do. There's no way you don't. I just know it. I can just tell from how your business was impacted. And they blew me off for about 3 months. And when I finally called, they were like, yeah, we looked into it. We did it. They had done it. They had gotten over $3 million. And I'm like, you guys name wings after people in your buildings who give less than that.